On this Wednesday night, Quebec's COVID vaccine passport takes effect. Fewer freedoms for those who didn't get the shot.
I know it's a choice that we make not to be vaccinated, but we used to be allowed to make that choice.
Plus, how Ontario's new system will work. The Liberals' platform and the price tag.
This is the plan that Canada needs.
The promises aimed at parents, the self-employed, and Afghan refugees. A Liberal candidate accused of inappropriate behavior. The criticism against the party for standing by Raj Saini. And smashing records. The Canadian Paralympians on top of the world.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. As Canada heads into the fall with rising COVID-19 cases, the debate is heating up over the degree to which the country should use vaccine passports. Today, Quebec became the first province to put one into practice. The passports are essentially certificates which confirm vaccinations and allow people to do things like eat out at restaurants, work out at gyms, or attend live concerts. Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and BC are introducing their own plans for passports. This country is in a fourth wave, and it's the western provinces that are largely driving it. BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan have much higher rates of active cases per 100,000 people compared to provinces in the east, including Ontario, whose population is larger than all three of those provinces combined. The Northwest Territories may have the smallest population, but it has the highest rate of active cases per 100,000 people. This is day one of vaccine passports in Quebec, and there's a so-called 2-week probation period before possible fines. In our top story tonight, Mike Armstrong has a look at the rollout and the resistance.
There is a new sound Quebecers are having to get used to, that little beep. Without it, there are going to be some serious limitations on what people can and can't do. Basically, before leaving home, you download the province's VaxiCode app and enter your proof of vaccination if you want to do something like enjoy a cold one on a terrace. That's a patio for the rest of the country.
I did it yesterday and it went really well. I thought it was going to be longer and it took a couple seconds and I was good to go.
Very minimal. I think it took 2 minutes of my day.
I opened my VaxiCode.
Now, Quebec is the first province, territory, or state in North America with a vaccine passport. There's been an ad campaign for a couple of weeks warning people to get ready.
Beginning in September, you'll need a vaccination passport to enter certain public spaces. Don't wait until it hits you. Get vaccinated.
The government has been predicting some hiccups with the rollout. The health minister said it could be, at first, in his words, rock and roll. The manager of this restaurant says he's been nervous for days, as it turns out, for nothing.
So far, so good, I have to admit. One person didn't have it, so we decided to take a takeout instead, and it was really understandable.
The VaxiCode app, or a printed proof of vaccination, is now required for places like gyms, movie theaters, bars, and restaurants. After a 2-week grace period, fines could run up to $6,000. Not everyone is happy. When the pilot project was announced, opponents turned up outside the Quebec City restaurant where the app was being tested. There was also a protest in Montreal.
We're supposed to have medical freedom in Canada, and it's difficult seeing. I know it's a choice that we make not to be vaccinated, but we used to be allowed to make that choice.
Now, the VaxiCode is not required for services like salons or driving schools, things the government deems essential. But there are appeals for that to change. This hairdresser says she will employ the app.
You know, this tool is now available, and I intend to use it.
She says she'll ask customers who don't have it to go somewhere else. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Ontario residents will soon have to show proof they've been fully vaccinated. The province rolled out the details for its vaccine passport. It's the 5th province to mandate proof of vaccination. But as Jamie Maraucher explains, the patchwork of passports across the country comes with concerns.
After months of refusing a provincial vaccine certification system, Ontario's premier says the 4th wave forced his hand.
There's no secret that I wasn't in favor of this.
Starting September 22nd, indoor settings like restaurants, bars, nightclubs, event spaces, and casinos will require anyone over 12 to show their full COVID-19 vaccination status before entry.
The venues that we have chosen are responsive to the risk that we've found in Ontario.
Though vaccination won't be mandatory for workers at those businesses.
Our membership, which is about 38,000 small and medium-sized businesses across Ontario, are extremely split on this issue. It's very contentious.
Retail spaces, salons, banks, essential services, and patios will not require proof of vaccination in Ontario. Those who are double-dosed will be able to request a personal QR code on October 22nd. This can be stored on your phone or printed. Venues will scan the code along with checking a piece of ID like a driver's license or health card to gain entry. Ontario becomes the 5th province to release plans for vaccine passports, creating a growing patchwork of policies nationally.
Had we had an opportunity to have a national certificate, we may have been able to establish some national protocols for response to the app going down, to the QR code not scanning correctly.
Imagine traveling around, even Canada, with 13 different vaccination certificates. It would have been much easier if we had one passport, federal passport.
So while it's not what Premier Ford had hoped for, like the fourth wave, the passport's here now, and Ontarians will have to live with it. Jamie Maraucher, Global News, Toronto.
The federal campaign has officially hit the halfway point. There are now just 18 days until the election. Polls show the race is tightening, and today the Liberals unveiled their full platform, including how much their promises will cost. The 82-page document called Forward for Everyone is the first fully costed platform to be released. It proposes $78 billion in new spending over the next 5 years. There's no timeline for balancing the budget, though. Justin Trudeau pitched the plan as ambitious and responsible. Our chief political correspondent David Akin is traveling with the Liberals. He joins us now with details on the promises and the price tag. David.
Robin, all the parties in this election are willing to spend billions to get your vote, and the Liberal Party is no different. It's a platform of promises that, if implemented, would add billions to the national debt.
This is a responsible budget. This is a responsible platform. It is a transparent platform. It is one where we really welcome scrutiny.
While the Liberals have already outlined many other campaign promises, there are some new spending commitments today, including the self-employed will be able to participate in the employment insurance system, with the government picking up the tab for some premiums. New parents can pause repayment of student loans until their youngest child is 5. And there's $350 million to help settle 20,000 Afghanistan refugees. The spending promises, new and previously announced, tally up to $78 billion over 5 years. Now, new revenue measures, though, only add up to $25 billion over 5 years. The big new one today, a minimum tax for high-income earners. The Liberals say those with a taxable income of more than $220,000 will pay a minimum tax of 15%.
The Liberal platform, which actually goes into much more detail than the NDP platform, is a very specific measure.
There are also some new promises that do not have a price tag. For example, the Liberals will prohibit the RCMP from using so-called chokeholds or using tear gas and rubber bullets for crowd control. The Liberals also promise to change the Canada Health Act to force provinces to provide publicly financed equitable access to abortion.
We need to be a country that stands unequivocally for women's rights, for a woman's right to choose.
Effective referral is really important to have in place, especially in rural and remote communities where, in fact, there is no ability to refer.
Now, all told, what's in this election platform from the Liberals would add $19 billion to this year's federal deficit, but the Liberals argue that the debt to GDP ratio would actually decline because they say, partly as a result of some of the spending measures here, the economy will grow quicker than government spending will grow. Robin?
David, how might this platform help the Liberals with their key objective, obviously winning the election?
Well, the Liberals here are boasting that this election platform is the most progressive platform ever put forward by a federal Liberal Party, and I would tend to agree with that. And for that reason, it is aimed straight at those NDP and Bloc Québécois voters that the Liberals absolutely have to have come back to their side of the ledger in order to win the government. Robin?
David Akin in Toronto. Thanks, David. The Liberal leader is taking heat for standing by a candidate facing allegations of misconduct. Raj Saini is seeking re-election in the Ontario riding of Kitchener Centre, which he represented for the past 6 years. Women who worked for the Liberals, including one woman in Saini's office, have accused him of inappropriate behaviour. In the past, Trudeau has said he has zero tolerance for sexual misconduct towards women. As our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stevenson explains, concerns about Saini's behaviour were brought all the way up to the Prime Minister's office.
It gives me great pride to rise today.
Concerns about Liberal MP Raj Saini first landed in the Prime Minister's office soon after the Trudeau government was first elected.
Because it's 2015.
Promoting a feminist agenda. Justin Trudeau had, just 1 year earlier, acted quickly to remove 2 MPs, Scott Andrews and Massimo Pichetti, from the Liberal caucus following allegations of sexual harassment, allegations both men denied. But after the election, a source with direct knowledge of the situation says senior staff in the new PMO did not act when they were warned of allegations of inappropriate behavior by 2 other MPs at the 2015 Liberal Christmas party. Marwan Tabara would be charged with 2 counts of assault, as well as 1 count of criminal harassment, break and enter, and committing an indictable offence in 2020. And Raj Saini, the current MP for Kitchener Centre, who is running for re-election despite multiple allegations of inappropriate and unwanted sexual behaviour during his time in office. Global News spoke with 2 women who raised concerns about Saini with senior Liberals and say the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, was aware. One woman who worked for Saini as a senior staffer complained of unwelcome sexual advances, harassing behaviour and psychological abuse. She says Saini yelled and threw things at work, and that the subsequent stress contributed to intense emotional duress, telling Global News she once tried to take her own life while in Saini's office. Saini told Global News he never acted inappropriately towards staff, saying, "I take the health and safety of all of my staff extremely seriously." Liberal leader Justin Trudeau has cleared Saini to run.
We make sure that there are proper, rigorous processes that everyone gets to go through when they come forward with concerns and allegations.
Trudeau and Saini have said a workplace assessment was conducted and found no concerns about harassment. But the woman who complained says she was never interviewed as part of the review. 2 women who worked in senior positions for the Liberal Party say they feel the PMO and the party are saying one thing and doing another. Robin?
Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa. Thanks, Mercedes. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole is campaigning on the party's plan to build key infrastructure, including public transit, roads, and 5G telecom networks. If elected, he's also promising to scrap the Liberal government's infrastructure bank, aimed at attracting private dollars for public projects. But that all comes with a price, and O'Toole is being grilled about how he'll balance the budget. Mike Armstrong is traveling with the Conservatives. Mike.
Robin, as Erin O'Toole was taking swipes at the Liberal platform, the Conservative leader was also taking heat for his promise to balance the budget within 10 years of taking power. According to the parliamentary budget officer, this fiscal year's deficit is just over $138 billion. O'Toole's platform hasn't been fully costed just yet, but he insists he can still get back to zero deficits without austerity.
We're going to create jobs and opportunity, build infrastructure that Mr. Trudeau announces but never gets built, and have a detailed plan and a disciplined plan to get spending under control to balance the budget over the course of 10 years.
A part of the Conservative plan is based on Canada having GDP growth of 3% annually, an assumption that some say is a little too ambitious.
We may get it for one year or 2 years. That is possible, but that's just for 1 or 2 years because we are coming out of the pandemic, and that's a sort of a special case. But then we are going to go back to our sort of normal growth.
Economist Mustafa Askari says historically Canada hasn't sustained a 3% growth rate over time, adding it's hard to see the Conservative path to balance without a fully costed platform. On that point, Erin O'Toole says the party asked the parliamentary budget officer to look at their numbers and will update his platform when the PBO reports back to them. Robin?
Mike Armstrong in Montreal, where Quebec is shaping up to be a battleground. Coming up, the NDP's mission to make a comeback in La Belle Province. The battle for votes in Quebec is headed towards a showdown between the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois. But the New Democrats are confident they have a shot too. That's despite the NDP all but disappearing from Quebec in the 2019 election. Abigail Beeman is traveling with the party and looks at what a comeback could look like. Abigail.
Robin, the NDP feel optimistic as they target Quebec, perhaps a little too optimistic depending who you ask, but they have nowhere to go but up. In 2019, they went from having 16 seats all the way down to 1.
Things feel really different, where we have a track record to run on where we've shown Canadians what you get with New Democrats, and that's made a big difference. People come up to us all the time saying, thank you for saving my job. Thank you for fighting to increase the wage subsidy.
Party sources say they're targeting between 4 and 10 ridings, more Liberal than Bloc, including cabinet ministers such as Stephen Guilbeault. They have several ousted MPs returning again, including what they hope is some star power in a former member of the 2011 Orange Crush, Ruth Ellen Brosseau. In 2019, Jagmeet Singh's opposition to Bill 21, Quebec's ban on religious symbols, turned out to be an insurmountable problem. And he faced racism directly on the campaign trail from voters who did not want a prime minister who wears a turban.
You should cut your turban off and you look like a Canadian.
But the NDP's last man standing in Quebec says he's not hearing those concerns at the door now.
I'm quite confident I will not be the only Quebec MP next time.
Leader Jagmeet Singh stays in Montreal to prepare for a French language debate Thursday night. His wife cast her ballot here Wednesday. With voter turnout even more critical this pandemic election, the party hopes that will send a message that it's easy to vote, even when you're not in your home riding. Robin?
Abigail Beeman in Montreal. Thanks, Abigail. The Assembly of First Nations lays out its top wishes for federal leaders. That's straight ahead. The Assembly of First Nations is weighing in on the federal election with its top priorities for the federal leaders. The attention put on residential schools and wildfires affecting First Nations communities made headlines in 2021. Now the hope is that they don't fade from the election spotlight. For decades, Indigenous people tried to tell Canada the truth about the harm done by residential schools, their children taken away, their culture erased. Then in 2021, the discovery of suspected graves at the Kamloops Indian Residential School finally got the attention of the country.
If you're a First Nations person in Canada right now, you've been affected by the residential school legacy.
The Assembly of First Nations, representing 900,000 Indigenous people, is demanding federal leaders provide resources to investigate what happened to the children at these schools. It also wants the next federal government to fund a national Indigenous healing organization to deal with the mental health implications.
We have to talk about it. That's the bottom line. Over the next few years, we will find more and more of these unmarked graves. This is an ongoing concern for First Nations.
Truth and reconciliation will always be a top priority, but there's also climate change. The wildfires right across Canada have displaced many Canadians, but in remote parts, it's often First Nations people that have to worry about losing their homes the most. They blame climate change.
The world is getting sick. And what we're seeing is the reaction of this sickness.
There are demands for the basic human right of clean drinking water, better schools, and control of its own healthcare system to avoid the racist treatment that Joyce Echaquan experienced before dying at a Quebec hospital.
So this election is more than any in the past. Involves a Canadian electoral population that is more engaged and supportive of First Nation issues.
VAFN won't endorse any party. The hope from all Indigenous leaders is that they'll all listen.
If they put more political will into those commitments, you're going to see a better country.
Our coverage of the 2021 federal election campaign includes a trip across the country, and Global National is back on the road tomorrow. Donna Friesen joins us now with where she's headed next. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Robin. We have headed north from Calgary to Alberta's capital. If Justin Trudeau is going to get the majority he is seeking, he'll be hoping to pick up the couple of Liberal seats he lost here in 2019. Right now, though, that is looking like a stretch. The Liberal government, not surprisingly, is not popular here in Alberta. What's interesting, though, is that the Conservative Premier, Jason Kenney, is also deeply unpopular, in part because of the way he's handled the pandemic. Alberta is in the midst of a fourth wave right now. COVID cases are soaring again. Hospital ICUs are filling up again. And the Premier, well, he's been on vacation for weeks. There have been no public health briefings at all lately. And yet his party is selling this as a fundraiser, a hat that says, "Best summer ever." So lots to talk about from Edmonton tomorrow. Robin?
All right, good stuff, Donna. And from Edmonton, Global National will head to Quebec, Nova Scotia in Cape Breton and eventually wind up in Ottawa just ahead of election night. Up next, a banner day at the Paralympic Games. Canada adds more medals to its count. It was Canada's most successful day yet at the Paralympic Games, with 2 record-breaking gold medals and a silver. Swimmer Aurélie Rivard struck gold for a second time in Tokyo. The 25-year-old from Quebec also broke her own world record in the women's S10 400-meter freestyle. The gold medal is Rivard's 4th time on the podium in Tokyo. Vancouver's Greg Stewart also set a new Paralympic record in the men's F46 shot put. He threw a whopping distance of 16.75 meters on his first attempt. No one was able to match it through the 6 rounds. And wheelchair racer Brent Lakatos has added another medal to his haul at the Games. He nabbed silver in the men's T53 100-meter final. It's the Quebec native's 3rd silver medal of the Games and his 10th time on the Paralympic podium. And that is Global National for this Wednesday night. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, your Canada is Naramata, BC. We'd love to see your corner of the country, so please keep sending your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in tomorrow when Donna Friesen will broadcast from Edmonton. Until then, have a great night.